welcome to this stream of Las Plumas de Simón. Malam Plumas Hanum, and I'm going to be your host for the rest of the evening, and I'm the most excited to welcome you here once more. How are you, Totori? I just realized, I guess that as the words were coming out of my mouth, I realized that I speak the most Persian because I speak the most Persian only in my English live streams, and I cannot quite fathom why. I think I'm feeling like, well, perhaps it's because I know my international audience, that is the one that can understand me in English, is also the people that speak Persian the most. Not that there's anything wrong with you speaking Spanish and Persian, but I feel like it's not the case as extended. Like my audience doesn't, my English-speaking audience does indeed speak much more Persian than my Spanish-speaking audience. Although I know Naim Jun speaks better Persian than I do, because my Persian is completely shattered to pieces. But it must come back. How are you? Hello, Wisdom. How are you? How are you this evening? I am very happy because today we are bringing Zoroastrianism back into the spotlight, and that is just fantastic, because if you've been around enough time, or if you've watched either my live streams or whatever thing or activity on my social media, the scattered posts that are there, that is, you know that I've always had a thing for Mazdaism, for Mazda for Zoroastrianism, because it was the thing that almost started it all. Back in 2015, 2016, I was very much focused on improving my knowledge on Mazdaism and Zoroastrianism, and the immortals, the mythological part has always played a major part for me. And the immortals, the Amesha Spenta, they represent something that's beautiful and pure, and that brings me back to these early days where I was just discovering how marvelous Iranian history and Mazdaism is. So I'm just very excited to share them with you. Although this stream is going to be a little bit different than others, because, for example, let's talk about images. As a doctor in art history, and yes, I'm going to be showing off my title because it costs sweat, tears, and effort. As a doctor in art history, I always try to bring you images so we can see what the locals produced and what the historical moment produced regarding art and history and the topics we're talking about. However, I don't have anything. I don't have anything from the time regarding the Amesha Spenta, and that is just how it happened. I don't have anything. There's no images from the Amesha Spenta from Zoroastrian times. And when I mean, what do I mean, of course, what do we mean from Zoroastrian times, since Zoroastrianism is still being practiced? I mean, we don't have any representations of the Amesha Spenta as the Amesha Spenta until the 20th, and I want to venture 21st century. There is an artist called Hannah Shapiro that drew them, and I'm going to be showing you those images for sure. But we don't have reliefs or coins or votive statues, because Mazdaism was not a religion of much produced imagery, if that makes sense. Later on, the Sasanians did a little bit, they added a little bit more on the iconographical part, on the iconographical dimension, yet Mazdaism is not particularly characterized for being an image producing religion, unlike others are, like Christianism or Islam, for example. We're gonna do our best though. What about the old carvings of that wing thing? That wing thing, that's definitely important. And you know what? Let's bring the wing thing. Yeah, let's come into the light, you beautiful Farbahar. This wing thing is not an Amesha Spenta. It is connected to them as this is connected to everything surrounding Mazda, but it's not. It doesn't have so much to do with the Amesha Spenta per se. Hello, Uloko. It's always very nice to see you, by the way. So this actually brings me to my very first point, because before jumping into the meat and potatoes of the matter, I'm hungry today. Apologies. Before jumping into the main topic, there is a little bit of a introduction that I would like to make. This is a series, one of my favorite series on the channel, which is called A History of Zoroastrianism. And I called it as such because I do not believe in one single history, the history with capital letters of anything, because there is no as such. And after my experience in academia and after all my formative years, I think I came to that conclusion and I'm going to stick to it, at least for now. But I do not believe in such a thing as the one and only history. But I wanted to tell you one of them. I wanted to show you some of the things of the Zoroastrian religion, that I enjoy the most, that I love the most. So that's the reason I call it A History of Zoroastrianism. Which one? Mine. Lumas Hanume Tariq Zoroastrianism. Attempting to speak Persian to an existing judging audience. That's beautiful. Yet, in this series, which I'm going to introduce you, is just the topics I like and fancy the most. So if you want to choose those topics from ahead, you can go to my Patreon, patreon.com/plumas and enjoy the extra content, the voting, the community in there. And if you are not one for doing Patreon, but still want to get involved into the conversation, you should join our Discord server. We have the best time there, and my community is factually the best one that's out there. I know this is something that's said like generally widespread among people creating like, content creators and such, but mine is like, this is factual, it's facts. You know, the sun rises from the east and my community is the best one, so no discussion in there. I'm not saying all the communities out there are worse, definitely not. They're lovely and they're fantastic. Mine just happens to be factually the best one. So if you want to be joining in that, just make sure you to join this Discord server. I'm gonna put the links in there because I don't think any of my moderators are here. Is this on? Which brings me to my next question. Is this on? I think it is. I'm gonna double check very quickly as I speak to you about some of the things I wanted to talk about in this before talking about the Amesha Spenta. First and foremost is about Mazdaism itself. So this is supposed to be on. What do you turn off? I question. I wonder. Let's try again. Let's see. So apparently I cannot connect for some reason. My CloudBot is not working. Let's try it. Okay, third time. It is the charm. So there you go. I knew I could do it. I'm very proud of myself at this moment. So the first question, the first thing to note is about Zoroastrianism itself and Mazdayasna and Mazdaism. Are all those three the same? They are, but there's sort of this to it. Mazdayasna would be the original name in the Avestan language. Then Mazdaism, we can use this to refer to a previous stage of the Zoroastrian religion up until possibly the rise of the Sasanian Empire, and then we can use Zoroastrianism to address the whole religion as it continues today. This is the point. Zoroastrianism is a religion that is very, very alive and evolving. So the things I'm going to mention today might not apply to the beliefs the Parsi community, the Zoroastrians in India, for example, or what the Zoroastrians today currently believe in. And that is perfectly okay because religions evolve. We're talking about a religion that, if the calculations of scholars are correct, we could be speaking about a religion that's been on and about for 2,000, almost 4,000 years. If things do not evolve in 4,000 years, that means something definitely off. What I mean is that things change, and it's natural for them to shift and change and merge and dissolve and separate. So Mazdaism is not the same, it was not the same as it is today practiced by Zoroastrian communities, and that's perfectly fine. What I'm going to talk about is the ancient belief, and again I'm going to mark the Sasanian Empire as my ending point because that is up until what I've researched, although Zoroastrianism kept existing. And why do I say this? Because perhaps you've seen Zoroastrianism addressed as, and I quote, the first monotheistic religion ever existed, the first monotheistic religion to be established. And that is definitely a wrong thing to say because Zoroastrianism is not a monotheistic religion, in the sense that all the deities among which the Amesha Spenta can be counted in, that are of importance for the cult, for the religion, for the believers, then it would not be accurate to describe it as monotheistic religion, because it is definitely not a monotheistic religion. What I've used, because I was told this by other scholars and my masters, is that we can call it a henotheistic religion. And that means there is a supreme deity atop of the top, god, goddess, whatever, deity in this case, which is Ahura Mazda. That one, the great creator, the wise lord, that one is the one that's praised constantly. You cannot forget that one. But then we have the 6 immortals, the Amesha Spenta, 6/7, we will talk about that. And you also have all deities such as the Yazatas, and denying the importance of the Yazatas would be definitely wrong. We would be turning the blind eye into some deities that carried on the weight of the religion, of the Mazdaism and Zoroastrian religion for a very long time. I'm talking about centuries here. And if we're talking about the Sasanians, for example, the perfect example indeed, is because we know how important, for example, Yazata Anahita was for them. So definitely not the first monotheistic religion in history. Definitely not. And I think that's everything I wanted to say before addressing the topic that has been brought up today by my lovely patrons. I want to send them a special regard, especially those of Tir Murshid and Ashdod, which are the ones that chose this topic. Again, if you want to choose the topic and delve into very fun activities, check on our Patreon. There's always something you can contribute with. What are you telling me, you loco? I missed your questions. Maybe it was not monotheistic, but I might still be correct to say the other monotheisms drew their inspiration from Zoroastrianism nonetheless. Definitely. And thank you for reminding me that. That's such a good point, because it brings us to another question, that is that religions are in contact with each other. And the same way we know Christian religion and Islamic religion influence each other, and Judaism as well. So it happened with Zoroastrianism. And indeed, you can actually see the change when monotheistic, truly monotheistic religions start to get involved with Zoroastrianism and to influence it. Zoroastrianism changes and shapeshifts, and it's natural and beautiful how it evolves and how, just things vary. And that is why history is so rich, at least from my point of view and my perspective. But yeah, definitely, I do believe that the 3 big monotheistic religions that we know definitely drew something from Mazdaism, and the same happened in return maybe some centuries or decades later. I don't know, I cannot give you a specific time, but we can see, for example, how in the beginning Mazdaism was much more about an order versus chaos religion, but in time this circular motion opens wide and flattens into a straight line, meaning that there is a beginning and there is an end. We can talk about the end of the world one day. That was my first international, hello Nefer, how are you? That was my first international conference ever, back in 2015. I talked about the end of the world in Zoroastrianism, and God, was it beautiful. And so you can see how it opens and widens and flattens. And then you have a beginning of creation, therefore an ending of creation. And that is something in the early Mazdayasana was not there, for sure. And then we have figures of the Saoshans and all that. But I am getting ahead of myself. I'm just, I love that topic so much. Bringing back so many lovely memories. If you want to check on the other videos, I have actually done an introduction to Mazdaism before in the Twitch channel. And we also talked about life after death. The scatology of Zoroastrianism. So yeah, sounds like the most prominent monotheisms all learned early on that it's much easier to grab content from others than building everything up from the ground. I mean, you're definitely not wrong, but I don't think it's just grabbing, as in being influenced by, and just we copy. Naturally, we do copy what we like and what we enjoy from others, be it for good or for bad. that must be highlighted, but definitely something that comes naturally to us humans. So Now, without further ado, let's delve into the world of the Amesha Spenta, or as I've called them, the Immortals. Why is that? Because we are going to start in the very beginning, which is the name, the expression Amesha Spenta, which is a term in Avestan that is very complicated to translate. That, I want that to be my first line. It is incredibly complicated to translate what Amesha Spenta really means. Many boys, she proposed a translation that I'd go on board with because there is not, there's nothing else. I couldn't come up with anything better. But how she translated it, it would be something between holy, as in sacred, or bounteous immortals, as in bountiful immortals, bounty providing immortals. And I know how holy and bountiful or bounty provider or bounteous, I know how they evoke these feelings of Christianity mostly. I know, but language has its limitations. Basically, the Amesha Spenta are a group of ideas that turned into separate entities and evolve. I wanted to say evolve, and it's just like dyslexia. That developed into individual divinities over time, but originally they were personalities, aspects of Ahura Mazda, the great creator themselves. So, these Amesha Spenta, the Spenta is how to explain this one, is a characteristic of something that is sacred. It's something that happens. Oh, how to say this is a character, because the Spenta word it will come later on. Do not forget the Spenta word because it's important. So Spenta means sacred, means something that's accustomed to be worshipped, something that should be worshipped, like supernatural, if you want to, is acknowledging something that's not from this world. As always, feel free to stop me anytime, because I understand how these things could be a little bit complicated sometimes. But where does it happen? The Amesha Spenta, as I tell you, they were not always individual divinities as we contemplate them today. No, rather they were aspects of Ahura Mazda, personalities, traits. I want you to imagine a die multi-faces, and in every side, in every face of the die there is one number. For example, it would be as if each number corresponds to a different personality, a different aspect, a different power or ability that Ahura Mazda displays. And the very beginning, they were not separate from them. Like, they were not separate from Ahura Mazda themselves. In fact, in the very early texts that are the Gazas are the most ancient texts written in Avestan. Some of them believe them to be written by Zarathustra himself, like by the hand of Zarathustra. Although, if you want to listen on the topic of whether Zarathustra existed or not, you can go check my other videos, because me personally, I'm not that convinced that Zarathustra was indeed real. We can talk about that in another moment, but that's just my opinion based on a lot of reading and a lot of researches. So, in the Gazas, the expression Amesha Spenta just does not happen, although they are mentioned, these aspects that we're going to see, the names, the aspects that will become names for the immortals, they are mentioned, they are highlighted, but not as separate. They're not mentioned as the Amesha Spenta. Sorry. The first recorded occurrence of these expression, however, appears in the Yasna Haptan Gaiti, which is a later, later text, and it says the following: "So then we worship the good beings, male and female, the Spenta Ameshas, ever living, ever benefiting, who hold by good purpose." So these Amesha Spenta appears in later texts. How is that logo? How well did Avestan text survive to the current day? Did we lose anything major? We've lost almost everything. The Horda Avesta, which is a corpus of text that is very little. It contains mainly the gazas, the hymns of the yazatas. That is the only example that we have of the Avestan language. Like, it is very, very little. The whole Avestan corpus sometimes is written in Pahlavi, for example. But if you want to check on that, I am going to share one of my favorite pages in the internet, and one that I'm very grateful for, which is avesta.org. In here, you can find basically almost every single Avestan text ever existed. I haven't drunk my tea yet, but cheers to you. Today we have a lovely chai called chai. I apologize to every single person from India or Iran or any other country. Like, this is chai. Difficult, I know. It has cardamom and it has darchin and it has hell, and darchin is cinnamon, hell is cardamom in Persian, and I think it has clove, but I don't know how to say clove in Persian. Nafa, could you help me out in here? How do you say clove, the spice, clove in Persian? Do you happen to know? How about the Parsis in India? Did they manage to save anything? Unfortunately not. The Parsis in India spoke of another language. The texts are in Persian, the texts are in Hindi, and translation did survive, but the Avestan language is a very ancient one, and we don't have many of them. You can check on that website. It is amazing, and it has everything, almost everything. Not everything, because everything is just not scattered around. Maybe today have everything. I don't know, but I am such a supporter of that website, and I thank for it every single day of my life. And oh gosh, I must call my mom. I get back to you. Nazism, don't bother your mom for this. I'm just genuinely curious, and you know what, because I feel pressured when I have Persian speakers in my live stream, because I need to go back to my Persian lessons, yet I postpone that moment every single time. But I'm very happy that I remember hell and darchin. Is it darchin? Darchin. I don't know, you tell me. And after this very brief Persian lesson, we continue to the Amesha Spentas. So the term in all the texts, for example, in which the Amesha Spenta appear, all of them, and maybe it's enough to call Google, perhaps, but I trust a mom, a Persian modar, I trust them much better than I do trust Google. So in Middle Persian, the form Amesha Spand or Amahsparand, it appears in a text that is beautiful, and I hope that you guys are interested in seeing a live stream on it, because I just love it so much, which is the Menori Kherad, the spirit of wisdom. A favorite among many, the Menori Kherad. It is just so lovely to read. So in this text, what we have is, since the text belongs to a different time, we have an explanation of who the Amesha Spenta are, as opposed to the divs or the daevas, as in they were called in Persian, in Avestan, and in Middle Persian, because basically the Amesha Spenta serve Ahura Mazda. Remember, they are personalities that detach from them, and the daevas are the servants of Angra Mainju, or Ahriman, as possibly is more familiar to your ears, and they represent the values of the good religion, they represent the values of the good practices. And together, Ahura Mazda and the Amesha Spenta form the Heptad. The Heptad is basically a group of 7. At the top of it, we have Ahura Mazda, and then we have the 6 immortals, the 6 Amesha Spenta per se, and the text in which these happens. Momipedia. I love it. Momipedia. Excellent. It's called Michak. I love it. Michak. Oh, I am never gonna forget that one. Definitely not. Completely lost track of what I was saying. What was I saying? Oh yeah, that the Amesha Spenta are opposed to the Daevas that serve Angra Mainyu, and together with Ahura Mazda, they form the Heptad. The Heptad, which is the group of 7. And I'm going to be insistent on this because I think it's one of the most important things to remember. If you need to take one thing from Zoroastrianism, from this session on the Amesha Spenta, it is that these were not original deities. They were aspects of Ahura Mazda that were detached from them through time. Did you know that Angra Mainyu made its way into anime? I know. Yes. So many Zoroastrian things are into anime. There is this anime, I think is called Champion or something like that, in which Bahram, like Berethragna, the Yazata, appears with its 10 forms. But yet, how I'm gonna be surprised if Gilgamesh himself made it into Fate's Day Night. As a fan of anime, I need to admit that yes, I know. I know. Do I like it? Not particularly, but it's good fun. That I must admit. By the way, if this is the first time you see this image, get used to it because I love it so much and it's beautiful. I haven't been able to visit yet, but this is the Ateshgah of Baku in Azerbaijan. Ateshgah means literally the place for fire, and it is a temple. It's a fire temple, a temple of fire, of the ever never extinguishing flame. That is a very difficult thing to say in English for me. So yeah, I think we've done pretty much an introduction, and we shall go meet the immortals now. They in some texts they do have an order, but I don't know which one it is. It's just I really don't know. I don't remember, and I don't think it's important because basically these what these represent, they were always together. So giving them an order, I suspect, is somehow, it is tempting to then like rate them as in importance. The first one must be the most important one, and the latter like not really, not quite at all. So I'm just gonna start by one that's been named quote unquote the first. I don't think they are the first whatsoever, but it is one of the most important ones because what they represent. So we're gonna go with that. In here, may I introduce you to Asha Vahista. Asha Vahista, which translates as the most beautiful truth. Asha means truth, and the concept of Asha is one of the most important in Zoroastrianism, in Mazdaism, in Mazdayasna. It is incredibly important for that one, because basically one of the things that Ahura Mazda tells us is to always tell the truth and stick by the truth. If you are funded of Achaemenid history, you know how in many inscriptions the Achaemenid said, I am a friend of truth, I am an enemy of the lie. Dariabush I introduces himself as such, Xerxes does it as well, and so and so and so. Like, it is a big part of Zoroastrianism being able to speak the truth, and these abstract power recalls, it's it would be like the best truth, and he represents that concept of always telling the truth, and it is very important to put it alongside the element he presides over, which is, as you can see by the image, fire. Asha is a protector of fire because, let's do a little digression in here. In Zoroastrianism, number 7 is really, really important. The lucky 7, yes, I know. In Zoroastrianism, they were thought to be 7 creations, 7 climates, the heptad. I mean, we're seeing number 7 everywhere in the Mazdayasna, and fire was among the most sacred of all creations because it was thought to contain the spirit of truth. That is the reason why fire is sacred. And again, do not mistake Zoroastrians by fire worshippers. They do not worship fire. They take care of it, and it is important to them for sure. It is a sacred symbol that represents many, many things, among them the value of truth. but they do not believe that fire is their god. That's what I'm saying. The god is Ahura Mazda. The deities, and there are Ahura Mazda, the Amesha Spenta, the Yazatas, but not fire. Fire represents truth, and because of that, truth should never disappear, thus fire must never be extinguished. If you see, everything is carefully threaded and tightened to each other. It's like a very micro to macro. That is very difficult to say in English. Micro to macrocosmos relationship. Because you can see the relationship between fire and truth is not just arbitrary. It's not just an association just because we have the sun to represent in here, the sacrifice of fire, the lining, the illumination of the mind, and all of these symbols that made Asha what he is. Asha, by the way, is Asha Bahisa, the one over here. It is one to be told to be waiting in the home of the best purpose, which is the way the Zoroastrians, and this I'm calling about I'm talking about 6th century, 7th century, 8th, 9th, and 10th. They will call it into the resting place for the souls of the pure, of the righteous, which is the home of the best purpose. Is it heaven? No, it is not heaven, for heaven is another concept. But in here we can call it, as it is. It has a name, the home of the best purpose. So this was Asha, and I'm going to show you another. Someone is like, I think I'm also getting into fire now. That's cool. I'm showing you the next one, which is one of the most complex, yes, one of the most interesting to me, which is Khsatra Bairiya. Khsatra Bairiya represents the dominion, how to translate this one actually, the desirable dominion that will come. Khsatra embodies this perfect earth, this perfect world that would come if we all follow the precepts of Zoroastrianism and if we all stick to what Ahura Mazda is telling us. Yet, Khsatra is a difficult one. Khsatra is a difficult one because there's not much written about him, and the association with an element was added much, much later than the other ones. And the element that Khsatra presides over is super, super, super interesting because, where do I have that? Yeah. Khsatra presides over the sky. And you can think, but Plumas Khanum, the sky is not an element. Sort of. In Zoroastrianism, this is gorgeous, okay? In Zoroastrianism, in Zoroastrian cosmology, the sky was thought to be made of either polished glass or polished metal. So Khsatra Bairiya is a lord of metals. And as a metalhead myself, that is something that amuses me and it brings me joy. Thus, the historical evidence suggests that Zoroastrianism was the most theologically intricate religion around during its early days. The level of complexity here sounds like something that wouldn't be possible outside of an advanced civilization such as Iran. All right, so we need to be careful with this because I am aware that I'm mixing basically everything. But in here, we will be talking about a cosmological thought that evolved through at least 600, 700, 800, almost a millennia, and then it was finally written down and possibly revisited and rewritten and reimagined over and over and over. And why am I saying this? Because all of the texts that we preserve, none of them date prior the 8th century, for example, 7th, 8th century. There's nothing that we preserve that corresponds to anything before that, because Zoroastrianism, Mazdaism, the Mazdayasna, is a mainly oral-based religion. They did not produce text, they did not produce volumes, they did not compile their knowledge. It is definitely not built in a day. According to the scholars that really delve into the matter, we could be talking about something that we could speak of as a proto, like a germ, just like this feeling of what Mazdayasna will become around 1700 before Common Era. That is a lot of time to evolve. A lot. And something we need to take into account as well, and this is one of the reasons sorry, apologies, your name is very difficult for this throat to pronounce, so bear with. That is one of the reasons I really like Sathra specifically, because it's not just Mazdaism doesn't take its influences just from all the religions, cults, and civilizations around. It does take influence by the world around, as the world itself, the earth. There are so many natural links and bonds between Mazda-Yasna cult, religion, and cosmological thought, and the earth and the land around. We have the elements, the 7 climates, everything is connected to nature. And that is very important because, as Henri Corbin liked to discuss, and also Mika Elia, they were talking about something different, but it's like, it brings me to my point. The location is so important, and also not natural history as just the observance of animals, but understanding the history of landscape and how landscape has influenced and made its imprint into religion is so important. What we need to think when seeing the Amesha Spenta, for example, is that if creation and the natural world were not as relevant for the Iranians or the Iranic people back in the time, because Iranian is actually not correct, it would be Iranic. For the Iranic people back in the time, they wouldn't have given them the importance of a deity for themselves, a deity presiding over fire, a deity presiding over the sky, which is made, quote unquote, over metal, glass. Hello, Clarita, how are you? Mazdaism is the same as Zoroastrianism. You must have missed the explanation before. But yes, Mazdaism and Zoroastrianism are just different faces of the same religion. Mazdaism, we can talk about Mazdaism between the Achaemenids and the Arsacids and maybe Seleucids a little bit. And then when the Sasanian, with the rise of the Sasanian Empire, is when we actually can speak much more about Zoroastrianism. Why is that? Because in Mazdaism, the figure of Sartosh is not as important. It's not that relevant. The code turns around Ahura Mazda much more, and just the immortals and such. Yet, after, with the rise of the Sasanian Empire and the Sasanians given more and more importance, we have the Yazatas being more prominent, among them, of course, goddess Anahita, and also the figure of Sartosht himself. So, talking about Mazdaism, it would be more accurate to refer to an early stage. Although, if your language allows you to do so, and your audience is understanding what you refer to, I would advise to use the original word, Mazda-Yasna. So, back to Sadra. How on earth is the sky made of metal? We are tracing back to Stone Age cosmogony. This is old, Bacha. This is very, very old. The sky was thought to be of stone, but metal was something that was not known yet. Then we advance into the Bronze Age, and then is when we get metal. And in Sartosht's revelation, the sky is in the Yasna. It's told to be of the hardest stone, and the hardest stone into the mines again. It developed to be made of crystal, because the hardest of stone and the most polished of stones for the Iranic tribes at the moment was crystal. That was what it meant for them. Am I explaining myself? I think I'm not explaining myself very well, but if you need me to repeat myself, I will just do, because I love this very much. So for them, crystal was the result of mixing stone and metal. That's the reason Khasathrabaniya kind of mixes in between with the sky being of metal, metals in general, and glass. By the way, if you use solar Ishri calendar, Shahribar? Shahribar is named after this one. Isn't that right? So I was saying that the natural world is of great importance for Mazayasna and for Zoroastrianism. And I think the next, yes, it is Shahrivar. This is Shahrivar. Shahrivar, Nefer Shahrivar. So many different things like are named after the Amesha Spenta. For example, the two ones coming along, which are Haurwatat and Ameretot, or maybe, as you are more familiar with, Hordad and Amurdad. Hordad is also another month, I think. I would say in the natural world, looks like they are really into those orbs on their headgear. These are the illustrations by Hannah G. Shapiro, which I thank her for doing because they're gorgeous, but they do not take them as they are legit because they are legit creations, but they are inspired by mostly a mixture between Sasanian and Achaemenid art and iconography. So these are not like exactly precise, but they do the job. They just, they get us the job done. And this is better than nothing. So Haurbatat and Ameretot are two, hello Berlin, how are you? And these are two deities, these are two Amesha Spentas that I always present together because they do go together, they're intertwined, and these are the first two that in their names, because the lexic and the etymology, they are clearly female, and they are Haurbatat. She presides over immortality, I would say, and Ameretot, it's the wholeness, the like just everything. No, sorry, I said it the other way around. Ameretot is the one linked with, I don't want to say immortality, but like ever living, which is not the same. I know how this sounds, but Ameretot is a hypothesis of ever living, of this long life, and then Haurbatat is the wholeness of it, which is very interesting because let's start with Haurbatat. It is very interesting because Haurbatat, representing the wholeness, presides over water. And water, it is, whole, and it invades the space and adapts and covers everything. So it's a very beautiful link to that. I'm excited to hear about Zoroastrianism. How are you? I'm very good, thank you. That is lovely to ask from you. Anahita, no. Do not be mistaken. Anahita exists. Anahita is the Yazata presiding over sweet waters. Not salty waters, but just like the water from rivers and the water from lakes. Haurbatat represents the wholeness of water in the surface of Earth, and also the one below, because yes, the underworld, it's not underworld, but the world under, it's also, the responsibility of this lady over here. So, on the one hand, we have Haurbatat, like Mesopotamian Abzu. It would be closer to the Mesopotamian Abzu. It's not close to Tiamat. Tiamat and Haurbatat are very different. It would be, the concept of wholeness would be much closer to the Abzu than Tiamat, actually. But actually, the deities, Haurbatat, for example, this one over here, do not understand them as deities from a pantheon such as the Mesopotamian one. These are concepts. Haurbatat, it is true, protects the waters, and she is a guardian of the waters in this world. But most importantly, she represents the concept of ever living, of eternity, if you must. Like long life, never dying, which is an aspect of Ahura Mazda themselves too. On the one hand, we have water, and in the other, where's my lady? We have Ameretot, and Ameretot, as I told you, represents this concept of eternity and also health. And importantly, she is linked to plants and flowers, trees, bushes, grass, fruits, flowers. This is why there is this concept of never dying. I'm getting them confused. Yeah, I'm mixing them up in my head because that's the reason they're so important, because they are intertwined. Water and wildlife, in the sense of like vegetal life, are so present in the surroundings of the Iranian plateau, of the Iranic territories, that they became concepts of their supreme deity. And if you think of it, it does make perfect sense, in the sense of plants never truly die. They never fade away. Trees come back every spring, the crops grow again, the flowers come back every year, and although they wither in winter or colder seasons, there's always this cycle of renewal, which is very interesting because, yes, as Zoroastrianism was progressing towards a much more good versus evil, linear religion, it always maintained this part of counterparting, in the sense that everything in Mazdaism, like back in the early time, everything was supposed to be existing for a reason. And, for example, negative, quote unquote, negative things such as death or night were required for day and life to exist. So, see, we have these order versus chaos construction in the early days, and then it evolves into much more like good versus evil, influenced by the monotheistic religions, which is again not bad, it's just something that happened. And but Amaretot and Horvatat, I'm gonna put them together because I love seeing them together. The nice couple, the good twins, they always go together precisely because they represent two of the values that are eternal. One is eternal life in the sense of do not think of eternal life as in, heaven and such. No, as ever existing, never fading out. And then we have wholeness and health. And let's just even deconstruct this just a little bit, a pinch more. Water and wildlife provide nourishment. They are the reason we are alive. We need to drink water, we need to eat. And we can find that in natural world. That's among the reasons that Horvatat and Amaretot are so important. Ever renew life. Exactly. I mean, Amaretot and Horvatat are very connected to the concept of Nowruz, which is a new year. By the way, we're only 3 months away from the new year, and I'm very excited because, yes, I do celebrate the Persian New Year, which is in March. You're very welcome to come celebrate with me anytime. Which brings me to my next point. Next week is Shabe Yalda, but we shall talk about that next week. Let's continue on, because if not, I'm never going to shut up about these two because I really like them. But we shall continue. We've seen Ashabahista, we've seen Khasasrawairiya, we've seen Horvatat, and we've seen Amaretat. Now we're going to see a third lady. And where do I have you? Oh, in here. And I really like this one, but it's a personal thing. You're gonna hear me say, I really like this one, I really like that one. I do. I have Bacha, Bachehoyemun, my Bacha. I have the capacity to be fascinated and excited and genuinely in love with the things I do. That's the reason I opened this little corner of the internet, for me to be excited and in love about these things. So when you hear me saying, oh, I love this one, it is not just a phrase that I say. It's not just an idiom. I genuinely love this. And the Amesha Spenta are so important and dear to me. I said Spenta Armaiti. Spenta Armaiti is alright, how to explain this one? Spenta Armaiti is also among the most important ones, if not one of the top. Like, we have it there, we have Ashabahista because Asha is the fire, but then also we have the Armaiti. And what Armaiti represents is, it's the noun of Armaiti comes with a Vedic cognate that means devotion, piety, this feeling of devotion. I don't have any more I don't have any other word that's better for that. And in the Gathas, actually, we have Aura Moza addressed as having the Spenta, holy or sacred, Armaiti, which is this piety, this devotion. And she becomes the center of many, many things, because the element she protects is the earth itself. Spenta Armaiti is the earth. I'm gonna take her out for a moment because I want you to admire Mount Damavand, which is my favorite mountain in the world. Can you have a favorite mountain in the world? You can, and this is mine. This is a powerful volcano, 5,000 plus, I think it's 5,200 meters tall. Impressive. On the north of Tehran, I've never seen it live like this. I think when I was living in Tehran, I think I saw it once, but the air was so polluted that it could be perfectly, it could be either Tochol, which is another mountain that is lovely and is nearby, and but it could be just a pollution or just a cloud. My favorite is Ararat. Ararat is a beautiful mountain too. Have you seen it live? Because have you been there and seen it live? Because I've seen the skirts of Mount Damavand and I love them, but I've never seen it, like the peak. I've been there, but I haven't seen the peak because it's normally covered. This is a very fortunate picture. Mount Damavand is mainly covered in clouds and pollution. Thanks for that. Aludet Herani. Okay, and also there we have. I really like Savidan. Oh, I've never seen you here. Hello, salam. Khosh amadid. My name is Blue Khanum. How are you? And you would really like to, maybe one day. Very good. I know, right? This is a very good picture. But also, I'm going to show you another one, which is the Alamku. Alamku is another mountain. It's beautiful. A little bit much. I said a little bit much. No, more dangerous. It is more dangerous than Mount Damavand, the Alamku, especially the upper part. Careful with that one. So, as I was saying, the devotion that Spenta Armaiti represents transfers into her being the protector of the earth itself. And and there is a pre-Zoroastrian text that says, this earth then we worship, her who bears us together with women. And this is another reason why Spenta Armaiti is linked to a feminine presence, or maybe to pre goddesses of the earth, because of its production. Exactly, yeah, it's a concept that is very it's very common, this motherness, this sense of womb from the earth. And in the case of Zoroastrianism, for example, it goes a little step beyond, because we talked about it in our Afterlife live stream. You can go check it out later if you want. But basically, the earth is so sacred that you cannot bury your dead corpses in there, because blood and corpses and humus in general, in Mazayasana, they're frowned upon. They're considered to be disgusting and dirty. That's the reason the Zoroastrians do not bury the corpses. Of course, this varied from place to place. Zoroastrianism was practiced in a very wide and varied areas, so of course could be that some Zoroastrian communities buried their people. Yes, it could be, but mostly what we have in the text is like the earth should be protected from things such as blood. If you clip your nails, for example, do not throw your nails into the earth. If you trim your hair, do not dare throw that into the earth, please, because also the earth is not just earth, but it is the soil that is fertile and provides with, for example, with crops and water. But you can't burn them either. No, you can't. So what you would do is just place them in an exposure site, and then let the wild bees feast on the flesh, and then collect the bones, because the bones, those are important. I am Azerbaijani. Oh, nice to meet you. And I'm very much in love with Iranian history. I consider myself an Iranian, not a Turk. I think Azeris are not Turks if we look at history. It's a really interesting point of view. And you know what? I think we should not really connect ourselves with our modern nationalities to those in the past, because things have changed so much. And if you like Iranian history, you've come to a good place, actually. My name is Khanum, and I am a doctor in art history and modern languages. And yeah, I love to share these things in here, so you're more than welcome to say. They were remarkably environmentally conscious for their time, at least on paper, because then again, do not forget this is just what remains on paper. Then we will need to see actually what if we only had like a hole we could peep and see what the actual practice was like. But yes, definitely they take into account the environment a lot. Environmental history feasts on the text of Mother Yasna, let me tell you that. And then I saved the most special for last, and this was just a personal choice, no other reason. And this one is Vohu Mana. Why do I like this one so much? Because of what him represents. Vohu Mana means literally the good thought. And to me, Wacha, and this is a little like a digression, everything starts with a good thought. Everything. Every single thing, a good thing in the world starts with a good thought. That is, for example, why in Zoroastrianism we have the Humata Hushta Hubarshta, which means good thoughts, good words, good deeds. I mean, literally, it would be something such as well said, well thought, well said, well done. But it's translated currently as good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And yes, as simple as it can get. Everything starts with a good thought. Every single thing that's good in the world comes from a good thought. And why do I like Vohu Mana the most? Because what Vohu Mana protects in the world, the creation he is entrusted with, are animals. And I love animals so much. We do have the presence of animals in Mazda Yasna is incredibly high. They are so relevant, especially birds. And I can tell you this because I don't know if you were acquainted with this, but I wrote my thesis, my PhD. I wrote it about Simurgh and her connections with Zoroastrianism and medieval art. And also the thesis was just a journey that was wonderful. And I loved doing it. And I got to research birds in Zoroastrianism, and because of researching the birds, I learned so much about all the animals. This one is a bearded vulture, and I love it because it's beautiful and it's just golden and regal. In Spanish, we call these ones, not these particular one, but these kind of vulture, we call them the bone breaker. Because they open, they crush the bones to get to the inside and eat it. They are gorgeous animals. So yeah, Vohu Mana presides over the good thought. And I'm going to put Vohu on the screen again. And I really like that the artist, Hannah Shapiro, put a lovely doggy in here. Because dogs, again, very important for Mazdaism. And also in here, you can see the columns from Persepolis. So or Tahte Jamshid, if you might. I know, it's a cute puppy, isn't it? Oh, I love dogs. I'm such a dog person. I love all animals, but I'm such a dog person. Back to Vohu Mana. Vohu Mana represents, again, the good thought, and we love him for that. And he also appears to have a very active role in the... how do I explain this? In welcoming, or like has something to do like meddlings on the troublings the souls of the righteous made from the Chinvad bridge, which is the separator bridge, until the home of the best purpose. Something in there. But also Vohu Mana, it is the most, for me, one of the most interesting parts about researching Vohu Mana is that he is the one appointed to have an opposite. Because yes, we have the good thought, which implies the bad thought also exists. So on the one hand, we have Bohu Mana, and on the other, Aka Mana, which is the evil thought. And it is very nice to see how still, even though after all that time, Zoroastrianism still kept something of this counterposition of good versus evil. I was wondering where you're from. I'm from Spain. Me llamo España y soy española. Not Ahriman. Nah. No. Akamana, the bad thought, is such a powerful concept in the Zoroastrian cosmology that they gave it their own representation. So that gives you the same as having a single deity for the good thoughts, explains how important the concept of good thought is for the people that believe in this religion. The same happens with bad thought. They consider bad thought to be so powerful, potent, and important, and they separate it from Ahriman. Of course, Ahriman embodies all the characteristics, everything. He has just everything. Because, again, remember that the Amesha Spenta are ideas and concepts that detached from Ahura Mazda. Thus, and because everything needs its counterpart, the opposites of the Amesha Spenta, which don't have a name, unfortunately, they also detach from Ahriman, from Angra Mainyu. I like addressing them as Angra Mainyu much more than Ahriman. I like the Avestan names better, but that is just a preference. Mine, it's alright. So, we've seen the 6 Amesha Spenta, but at the beginning I mentioned that they might be 7. So instead of the Heptod, which is a group of 7 deities, that would be Ahura Mazda and the Amesha Spenta, I mentioned perhaps the existence of an 8th one. Number 8. Numero 8. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, have hashed. Yes, I count like the children. Do not judge me. Is good here more kind of logical right? Getting hung up the word thought here, I guess. I think in here it has more to do with being kind than being rational. If that answers your question. But not kind as if... It is a good question. I like this one. It's not reason. It's not logic. That is for certain. And like thought is not... When we say thought, we mean the mana. And mana represents the capability that humans have to think. I would not call it reason because reason is a concept much more attached to Western European thought and philosophy. I'm not saying it might not have its connections, of course, but in this case, I wouldn't go with that kind of reason because I don't think it applies. Still, it's a nice question. All right, so number 8. Hashed. Is there an 8? Perhaps. Because I studied mathematics and absolutely agree. I'm happy you agree with me. That's also always very nice when someone agrees with you. Where is my numero 8? Which language I'm speaking? The 3 of them are just mixed in my head. There we go. So, we have in some text, later text, and I want to emphasize this. This is a later occurrence. This is a very, very late, and by late, I'm talking about the 12th century, the 10th century, perhaps the 9th century. We have in the text, Spenta Mainyu. Now, what is this? Spenta Mainyu is basically, and excuse the comparison, the weapon of Ahura Mazda. I know it sounds weird. Let me explain. Spenta Mainyu literally means, oh my god, okay, I need to explain this carefully. Literally, it means holy, sacred, spirit, as in force, supernatural force. So please, let's try to, I know what the word Holy Spirit convey. I understand. But let's just try and detach ourselves from the Christian background, because this is not referring to that Holy Spirit. In here, what we have is that Spenta, mind you, is the representation of the sacred supernaturality that all the Amesha Spenta plus Ahura Mazda plus all the deities like the Yazatas like Anahita, Berethragna, Rashnu, Zoroastra, that all of them have. Because Spenta, mind you, is what makes them supernatural and sacred. This is what makes deities in the Zoroastrian pantheon worth of being worshipped. And yes, I know the word Yazata also means worth of being worshipped, but in this case, Spenta represents that spirit, that capability, that quality of the deities of being supernatural and powerful, and all of them have it. Ahura Mazda has it, all the Yazatas have it, and of course the Amesha Spenta have it. So this is the reason I'm saying I am not sure to consider this one as an Amesha Spenta, because it's a capacity, it's a quality. Happens that later, and yes, this one is really influenced by monotheistic religions, people started to personate the quote-unquote Holy Spirit. Because why? I have no idea, but they did. And then the concept of Spenta Mainyu was perfect for this. It really could see this force, this spark of life, this supernaturality that brings things together. In fact, some of the creations, and yes, I'm including humans in this one, some of the creations have this Spenta Mainyu. We humans do very little, just a very like a tiny pinch of it, but we do. And that is absolutely beautiful, I think. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the subject? Is there any deity in the pantheon that didn't have that worth of being worshipped? Nope. Not a single one, because all the pantheon is comprised, it is subjected and sustained by this concept. Therefore, all deities are worth of being worshipped. I mean, Ahura Mazda is always the top of everything. That is just you need to remember that one. So, do I consider myself? No, that's not what I wanted to say. Do I consider this one would be an Amesha Spenta? No. If you ask me, no. Because the Amesha Spenta, what they have is that they form a heptad with Ahura Mazda. They need to be 7. Number 8, unfortunately, there's not much for it. And what I've seen in some texts is that Ahura Mazda is replaced by the Spenta Mainyu, which basically is like, could be done. Yeah, definitely. But I do not consider the 8 of them being that. I consider the Amesha Spenta being Bohumana, Ashabahista, Khusatra Bairilla, Haurbatat, Ameretat, and Spenta Armaiti. The 7 ones. Sorry, the 6 ones, and then you have, Ahura Mazda, the heptad. Did a lot of concepts get personified eventually? Yes, they did. I mean, that is exactly what happened to the Amesha Spenta. Exactly what happened. And yes, it does make for pictures. And again, repeating again, the artist behind these images is an artist called Hannah Shapiro, and she's done these beautiful creations, these beautiful reinterpretations of the Amesha Spenta, using mostly Achaemenid with just like hints of Sasanian art. And these are interpretations because we do not have anything contemporary. We don't have anything produced, any kind of art of the Amesha Spentas. We don't have anything until this very one, or maybe 19th century / 20th century productions, but things like, an image identified as an Amesha Spenta, only these ones. Is this something bad? Not really. Like Zoroastrianism, not all religions behave the same, and not all religions evolve in the same way. So Zoroastrianism was not a religion to produce images, and that is perfectly okay. It's not what they needed. Let's see all of them. What do you say? Let's see them again. All right, so we have Haurbatat and Amaratat, the wholeness and the ever life, the ever living capacity. We have Ashavahista and Chsatra Bairiya, the best truth and the desirable dominion. I really like how the desirable dominion sounds. It's beautiful. That concept is beautiful. And then last, but definitely not least, we have Bahumana and Spenta Armoiti. The good thought and the sacred, the supernatural devotion. And I think this is a good place to stop and to finish our live stream because, yeah, we made it until the end. Thank you so much for accompanying me, Bacha, and do let me know which one was your favorite. My favorite, definitely and without discussion, is Ahura Mazda. Does the fact that he presides over animals have something to do with my choice? Most definitely. Like, yes. I love the good thought concept though. I think it's beautiful and gorgeous. But yeah, those were the Amesha Spenta. Thanks, Plumage Joan. Oh, I get the June now. I feel like a kid. It was so interesting. I keep listening about this for ages. Well, you've come to that. You're now in the community, and I am saying, as I said before, if you want to join our Discord server, as Nefa and other people have already, you are more than welcome to. Let me invite you over to to the Plumas Khane, actually, because it is like my house. My community is amazing and you will love it. Then just come by, say hello, share your thoughts with us, because my Bacha are just amazing. And thank you, Bacha, for accompanying me in this afternoon, evening. Well, actually evening in here, but if you're watching this, re-watching this, from any platform, and you're listening to it now, thank you. I hear too much nightmare climate news. I go with water. I mean, Horvatal is a beautiful one. It was very interesting. My favorite for sure was the one with the cute doggy. Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. Oh, thank you. That is beautiful. Thank you, Claria. Mine was the water too. Yeah, Haurbatat is beautiful. The concept of Haurbatat is just gorgeous. But yeah, Bacha, thank you so much for accompanying me in this gorgeous, lovely evening. I had a blast. I love talking about these things and I love sharing the history of Zoroastrianism, one history of Zoroastrianism with you. And again, shout out to my patrons that are the reason this stream was brought forward, because my patrons get to vote what's coming. You have to look deeper, definitely. If you want sources, you can ask me for them. And Bacha, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for being there as part of this lovely Plumas community. If you want to see each other, again, next week we're celebrating Shabe Yalda, and because you, Bacha, requested it, yes, we're going to celebrate Yalda, although on the night on the 21st, we're going to celebrate it in Spanish, and the night of the 22nd, we're going to celebrate it in English. Why is that? Because I cannot do two live streams at the same time, and I'm not doing a bilingual one because my brain is already a little bit crooked. Can you imagine doing a live stream in Spanish and in English at the same time with two different audiences? I mean, what an experience. I need to try it that sometime. Definitely not during the Yalla celebrations, that's for sure. But thank you so much again. Yes, exactly, we can celebrate twice. Thank you, Uloko, for being the voice of reason. Thank you. Sepas gozaram, khayli mamnoon, muchas gracias. Was another way. I mean, yeah, merci, but merci is like the shorty one. I like how deep and ancient Sepas Gozaram sounds, but when I speak in Persian, I normally go with Khayli Mamnoon. All of them are different forms of saying thank you. People should run Christmas this way, definitely. How? I have no idea, but definitely. I mean, Uloko is one to have very good ideas, so listen to the voice of reason. But I need to bounce now, but thank you for coming along, and remember to create, explore, and have a little fun. Until we see each other next time, I bid you Khodafez!